Hello again, beautiful best friends. It's so nice to see you. Thank you again for joining me in our safe little space of the internet. I hope you're doing well and that you have been having a fabulous week. Thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of our dive into the Anna Delvey case. If you are new here or you haven't seen part 1, then I highly suggest clicking on the link in one of these corners up here. I can never remember which one, or in the description down below, and get yourself all caught up before we proceed together on this crazy, crazy case. Of course, our favorite guest star, Lily, is here as well because no one puts Lily in a corner. I know, no one puts you in a corner, do they? Because you're too pretty for the corner. Anything you want to add? You just here to say hi and put more fur on my mic. Yes. See, I told you, no one puts Lily in a corner. But without further ado, we are going to dive right back in this case. Something like that. Just to give you a quick previously, in part 1, we spoke about the rise of Anna Sorokin, aka Anna Delvey, and how she had been up to some serious mischief, scamming the banks and hotels of New York City out of a whole bunch of money, all while having people around her believe that she was this wealthy German heiress living this bougie, lavish life, and she was trying to build her own company, the Anna Delvey Foundation, or ADF, kind of on the back of all of her lies. But now it's part 2 and the tables are officially about to turn for Anna. So when we left off, Anna had planned this extravagant trip to Morocco and she had invited along her friend Rachel Williams, saying, "Don't worry, the whole trip's on me." So Rachel enthusiastically agreed because no one in their right mind would turn down an all expenses paid trip to Morocco. Anna told Rachel that this trip was for leisure and that she also wanted to use the opportunity to create content for a little promotional video to document the process of her building ADF, most likely because she was seeing the massive amount of attention that Fire Festival was getting on social media around that same time. So Rachel recommended a videographer friend of hers named Jessie Hawke for the job, who could follow them around and film them. And Jessie agreed to waive his usual fees as it was going to be an all expenses paid trip for him as well. Also coming along was Casey Duke, Anna's celebrity personal trainer, who had started to kind of take on a friendship role in Anna's life as well and taken her under her wing a bit. So it was a bit of a mismatched group, right? Anna hadn't even been able to fill the 6-person villa she had booked. And this wasn't lost on Casey, who had always been impressed in the past with how well connected Anna seemed. And so she asked, what's going on with your friends? Where'd they all go? And Anna just told her that they were all mad at her because she had left Purple magazine. But I think we can all agree it's more likely that Anna's friends had started to catch on that she wasn't legit, and so they had pulled away. Anyway, the trip was all organized within just a couple of weeks, all really quickly. And then the day they were supposed to fly out, Anna told Rachel that she had gone to purchase the flights, but her credit card wasn't working. Her bank was being a pain about security and blocking the purchase, but she told Rachel, "Don't worry, I'll sort it out and I'll send the e-tickets through soon." And so Rachel was on and off the phone with Anna throughout that day saying, how's it going? Have you got the tickets yet? And Anna told her no, her bank was still being a total pain and she hadn't been able to get the purchase to go through. And Rachel, now getting just a teensy little bit stressed with this incredibly tight timeline, was like, "Look, do you want me to just put the flights on my credit card for now and then you can transfer me the money back?" And Anna was like, "Yes, that would be a huge help and I'll transfer the money back as soon as my bank gets their act together. Just remember, first class." And this was no biggie for Rachel. She would book flights and put them on her credit card for people at work all the time for Vanity Fair. But for us, knowing all we do about Anna, this is our first real big red flag that this trip was not going to go to plan. So Rachel booked the flights, paying with her credit card, and the group landed in Marrakesh, Morocco on Saturday the 13th of May 2017, where they were greeted and escorted through customs by a lush VIP service that had been sent by the hotel they were staying at. Once they got out of the airport, they were guided to a couple of Land Rovers and driven to the hotel La Mamounia, which is a literal palace in the heart of Marrakesh, built in the 18th century and turned into a hotel in 1929. And a huge amount of Hollywood royalty have stayed there over the last 100 years, as well as actual royalty. So Anna had promised luxury and she was most definitely delivering. This was the trip of a lifetime. And she and her group wouldn't just be staying at one of the hotel's beautiful rooms. Instead, Anna had booked them a $7,000 a night private villa, complete with a personal butler, courtyard, and private pool. Once the group arrived at the hotel, they all just breezed past reception with no need to go through the usual check-in process, as Anna assured them that the billing had all been organised in advance. And they spent their first day exploring the palace, chilling out in their private pool, eating watermelon, and drinking ice-cold rosé served to them by their butler, which just sounds like heaven. That night, they had an expensive dinner at one of the restaurants at the hotel. They had drinks at one of the bars. And in the morning, they enjoyed a private tennis lesson organised by Anna. All of this, of course, being charged to their room by Anna. A couple of days into the trip, Anna suggests to Rachel that they hit the markets because she wants a cool picture of handfuls of colourful spices to put on Instagram, and she wanted to buy a couple of caftans as well. And so they're traipsing around the markets. Anna finds some caftans and some scarves and some dresses that she likes as well. She's like, Rachel, I'm going to buy you one too. And it all comes to a total of about $13,000. And she goes to pay, and her debit card is declined. They try again, and it declines again. And Anna's acting all confused and annoyed. And Rachel asks her, well, did you tell your bank that you were traveling? Because obviously, if Anna's bank doesn't know that she's in Marrakesh, this is going to seem like a pretty suspicious purchase, and the bank is going to block the transaction. And Anna's like, oh, no, I totally forgot. Do you mind just popping it on your card for now? And I'll call the bank when we get back to the hotel. And Rachel agrees, making sure to get a copy of the receipt, of course. And then that night, they all go out for dinner, and Anna says that she hasn't been able to get through to her bank. And so Rachel pays for that as well, adding it to the tab. And this pattern continues for a few days. Anna saying things like, oh, she's gotten through to her bank and they're in the process of lifting the block on her account. Can Rachel just pop this meal on her card? Then the next day, oh no, the block is still there and Anna's going to have to call the bank again. Can Rachel just pop this amazing dress on her card? And Anna's tab with Rachel is just steadily increasing. She's not paying a cent anywhere. But Rachel is just like, I mean, these things happen. I know Anna's good for it. I mean, she's a freaking heiress. She'll just pay me back once she sorts out everything with her bank. And then on Tuesday, their fourth day in Morocco, as they're walking through the hotel lobby, one of the staff calls over Anna and pulls her aside discreetly to have a quick word. And when she comes back, Rachel's like, you know, is everything okay? And Anna says, oh, everything's fine. I just need to call my stupid bank. Anna, Rachel, and Jessie then go on a day trip to the Atlas Mountains. Unfortunately, Casey Duke, the personal trainer, is sick in bed with food poisoning, so she can't go. But when the three of them get back and walk into the hotel, sure enough, they're stopped again, this time by two men from the hotel who take Anna to the side while she makes a phone call. And while Rachel and Jessie are standing there awkwardly waiting, Rachel overhears that one of the hotel reception staff has been fired for letting Anna and her group check in without making sure that there was a functioning credit card on file. I don't know what Rachel was feeling at this point, but I imagine she had to have this massive pit in her stomach by now. Like, it gives me so much anxiety and dread just thinking about it. And then these two men follow them to their villa while Anna's still talking on the phone, supposedly to her bank. And these guys just stand there for ages, being all intimidating until eventually Rachel has to leave the room. She just can't handle it anymore. The next morning, the trainer, Casey, left early because she was still so sick and she bought her own tickets back to New York. And after she left, the two men from the hotel were back at the villa, just standing there, towering over everyone, watching while Anna was still going through the motions, pretending to send emails and yell at her bank on the phone. But then after a while of this, Anna just stopped and sat there for ages, not even looking at her phone, just staring into blank space. It seems like for once she had been caught out and couldn't see a way to weasel her way out. So she just shut down. And eventually the two men turned to Rachel and were like, well, what about you? Can you put a credit card on file for the booking? And Anna is like, yes, what a great idea. Don't worry, Rachel. It's not even going to get charged. It's just for security. And the men are telling Rachel that if they don't get a functioning credit card off one of them, they're going to have no choice but to call the police. And so poor Rachel, getting pressured from all sides, eventually caved and put her credit card on file, even though Anna already owed her tens of thousands of dollars for this trip that was supposed to cost her nothing. But she told herself that it wasn't going to be charged, and so it wasn't that big of a deal. But we all know where this is going, right? After this, the group split ways. Jesse went back to New York, having to buy his own flights because when he got to the airport, he was told that there was no booking for him. And Rachel went on to France as she had already planned. And it was when she was in France that her credit card was charged for the full amount of the hotel booking, meaning that her tab for Anna now stood at $62,000, more than what she made in a year. Rachel, of course, called Anna in a total panic, and Anna assured her that she would put through a wire transfer ASAP to pay her back. Hell, she was even going to put through $70,000 just to make sure the tab was entirely covered. But Anna didn't have $70,000 and the wire transfer never came through. Hi, it was never going to come through. Poor Rachel, hey? Can you handle the anxiety? So while Rachel is obviously tearing her hair out about this $62,000, Anna, meanwhile, has been able to book herself a helicopter from Marrakesh to Casablanca. And a few days later, Casey Duke, the personal trainer, gets a phone call from the Four Seasons there, and Anna is absolutely bawling her eyes out and asking if she can lend her money for her hotel bill because her credit card still wasn't working and the staff were going to have her arrested. And this next bit to me is like the stars aligning for Anna one last time because Casey agreed to lend her the money and gave the hotel staff her credit card details over the phone, but her card got declined. And so Casey asked her friend who she was with for her credit card details, but her card declined as well, leading the hotel to believe that the problem was on their side and they let Anna off the hook. But Anna wasn't done with Casey and she asked if she could please pay for her flights back to New York because she just wanted this horrendous holiday to be done and over with. And when Casey agreed, Anna had the gall to be like, thank you so much. Can you please just make sure the tickets are first class? Like, what planet is this girl from? So Anna came back to New York and there was no way she was going back to 11 Howard. So she ended up instead at the Beekman, where once a freaking again, she was allowed to check in without putting a credit card on file. And just 3 weeks later, she had racked up a bill of over $11,000. So after she repeatedly refused to put a credit card on file, the Beekman evicted her. Anna then moved on to the W, where she attempted the exact same scam, but now word had finally gotten around to the hotels and the bars and the restaurants of New York about Anna's antics, and the W ended up kicking her out after just 2 days, and both the W and the Beekman ended up pressing charges against Anna for theft of services. By July 2017, Anna was effectively homeless. She had burned all of her bridges and no hotels were falling for her trick tricks anymore. So the week of the 4th of July, she called Casey, the trainer, and asked if she could stay with her. And Casey was like, look, I'm sorry, I'm on a date. But Anna burst into tears and told her that she needed someone right now or she might do something. So Casey bailed on her date and let Anna stay on her couch. But even though she had almost taken on this maternal role with Anna, she had had enough by this point. So she kicked Anna out the very next day. This was the month that Anna's luck finally ran out and she was arrested after she tried to skip out on a $200 lunch bill at the La Parca Meridian Hotel, and the staff called the police on her. During the arrest, Anna was quoted as saying, "Why are you making a big deal out of this? And if you give me 5 minutes, I can get a friend to pay." But I mean, it was clear to anyone at this point that the jig was up. Anna's lawyer managed to get her released without bail, but she was now facing 3 counts of misdemeanor theft of services, and she had a court date set for September. But as if all of this wasn't traumatic enough, not long after her arrest, Anna was ambushed with kind of a surprise intervention organized by Casey Duke and her old pal, Rachel Williams. Now, poor Rachel, right? Ever since she had come back from the Morocco trip, her life had been like a waking nightmare. She had been scammed by a woman that she thought was her friend for $62,000, and it had become like a second full-time job for her, scrambling, trying to get the money back off Anna. And Anna was really good at keeping in contact at first. She messaged Rachel pretty much every day with all of her usual promises. You know, I've already wired the funds through. It's so weird that it hasn't hit your account yet. There must be some kind of problem with the bank. And then one day she told Rachel that she had a cashier's check ready to go for the full $70,000. And so Rachel, completely desperate, turned up unannounced at Anna's hotel and asked her for the check. And Rachel says that Anna pretended to look for this check for ages, rifling through all of the paperwork in her room and all of the piles of shopping bags before she told Rachel that she must have left it in the Tesla that she had hired earlier. So Rachel called her bluff and was like, fine, call the car hire company. And she followed Anna around that whole day. She had lunch with her, she sat in on meetings with her, and all day Anna pretended that she was chasing up this check that they both knew didn't exist, until finally at about 11 p.m. Rachel gave up and went home with no check. Since then, she and Anna had been in sporadic contact, with Anna still promising that the money was coming through any day. She even put Rachel in contact with her family accountant, Bettina Wagner, because by this point, she had killed off her old accountant from part 1, Peter Haneke, telling people that he had passed away. Bettina, it should go without saying, was also completely fictitious. Despite all of these assurances from Anna and now Bettina, it was well and truly clear to Rachel that she had been scammed and that she had never been Anna's friend at all like she thought. She had just been a mark to her. But when Casey Duke reached out and asked her to come to this dinner and sit Anna down and confront her, Rachel reluctantly agreed because like things could get any worse, right? Anna turned up that night wearing the same dress that she had been wearing for weeks that Casey had lent to her when she crashed on her couch, because the Beekman had confiscated the last of her belongings when they kicked her out. And she was in a huff because the media had finally caught on to her antics, and an article had been published by the New York Post entitled "Wannabe Socialite Busted for Skipping Out on Pricey Hotel Bills." This article actually revealed Anna's real name, Anna Sorokin, but Anna wasn't bothered so much about that or the details of her arrest. Instead, she complained to Rachel and Casey about the Post calling her a wannabe socialite. That's what she was fuming about. During the dinner, Casey and Rachel tried to talk to Anna about how the way she had been living was wrong, and Rachel tried to hammer home to her exactly how negatively her life had been impacted by Anna just leaving her with the entire cost of the Morocco trip. Her work performance had suffered. She couldn't cover her rent. She was waking up at 4 a.m. having panic attacks. But she could tell that Anna wasn't really listening. And as Rachel expected, the intervention didn't achieve a whole lot. All Anna wanted to talk about was how hard her life had become and how she could still make ADF happen and pay everyone back what she owed. She just needed a little bit more time. And so, totally frustrated and defeated and out of other options, when she went home that night, Rachel sent an email saying, "I think this girl is a con artist," to the New York County District Attorney's Office, along with a link to the New York Post article, to which they replied, "We know." Rachel had already tried to speak with a couple of lawyers about taking legal action against Anna, but they had all dismissed her and just been plain awful. One of them was even like, "Oh man, that sucks, but with your face, I'm sure you could start a GoFundMe and get your money back." But finally, after all this time, when speaking with the district attorney's office, Rachel learned that Anna's shady dealings were finally catching up with her, and authorities were building a case against her to finally bring her down. Anna, meanwhile, she laid low for a little while after the arrest and the intervention, but on the 25th of August 2017, she was officially back to her old tricks, and she deposited 2 fraudulent checks into a signature bank account and quickly withdrew $8,200 before they could bounce. And she used this money to take what she told people was a planned trip to California, where she checked into a rehab facility. And as a result of this trip, she missed her court date in New York on the 5th of September, and a warrant was issued for her arrest. When Rachel found out that Anna had missed her court date and was holed up in rehab in Malibu, it only took her a little bit of research to make an educated guess as to which facility Anna was staying at. Passages Malibu is a facility that specializes in the treatment of drug and alcohol addiction, offering the very best in holistic therapy in an incredibly relaxing and luxurious setting, complete with pools and tennis courts and, of course, a price tag to match of roughly $80,000 to $110,000 a month. Celebrities like Mel Gibson, Marc Jacobs, and David Hasselhoff have all had stints at Passages, and Rachel just knew that this is where Anna would have checked herself in. And with Anna already fleeing to the other side of the country, Rachel was kind of worried that her next move was just going to be skipping the US for good. And so she sent a text to test the waters, and Anna told her that it wasn't a good time. She was in hospital, and she acted really sulky in these messages, like she was the one that was hard done by and Rachel was the one in the wrong, because she really believed that Anna had intentionally scammed her and wasn't going to pay her back. Like, just total gaslighting. But Rachel played it cool, and like everything was all good and it was all just water under the bridge. And Anna obviously bought it, because when she learned that Rachel was traveling to California for a Vanity Fair conference, she was like, "Oh, cool, we should totally meet up." And Rachel enthusiastically agreed, and then on the sly sent screenshots of the text to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, who essentially set up this sting operation, because although legally they could have just stormed into the rehab clinic and arrested Anna, it wasn't something that they wanted to do unless it was completely necessary. Like, I imagine storming in and arresting a patient just isn't good for their image. Oh, hi. It wouldn't be good for their image, would it? Maybe karma too. And so on the 3rd of October 2017, Rachel and Anna organised to meet up for lunch at a restaurant close by to Passages, but of course it was all a ruse. And the second Anna stepped foot out of the facility, Los Angeles police swooped in and placed her under arrest. She was then transferred back to New York, where she was deemed a flight risk and held without bail at Rikers prison to await trial. And Rikers sounds great. It sits on Rikers Island in the East River between Queens and the Bronx. In 2013, it was ranked in the top 10 of the worst correctional institutions in the US, and it's got a reputation for violence, abuse, and neglect of inmates. And in 2015, there was a total of 9,424 assaults recorded in the prison. So it's a tough crowd. And after years of complaints from inmates in 2019, it was decided that the prison will be closed in 2026. So I think it's safe to say that this was just a teensy change of scenery for Anna, right? But surprisingly, she says that she didn't hate her time at Rikers at all. In an interview later, she even called it therapeutic and said it was an experience that she wouldn't wish away. And it sounds like when she went in, she got this like grudging respect from the other inmates because she was in there, of course, for ripping off the rich. But this didn't last. And Anna ended up spending time in solitary and racked up 13 infringements for things like fighting and disobeying the guards. But during an interview with the New York Times, she said that this was all just giving her more content and inspiration for not one, but two memoirs she was writing. Before Anna's trial, she was offered a plea deal for a lesser sentence if she would return to Germany to serve her time, but Anna refused and pled not guilty, saying that she felt going to trial was the only way she was going to be able to tell her story, but this wasn't exactly accurate. In May 2018, New York Magazine released a full-on expose about Anna written by Jessica Pressler, an article that would launch Anna into the spotlight on a global scale. And after seeing the frenzy that her story stirred, because everyone loves a good scammer story, Netflix promptly reached out to Anna and they signed a contract for the rights to her story. So when her trial finally began in March 2019, there were Netflix researchers right there alongside the media with a front row seat to the trial, furiously taking notes. At the trial, the prosecutors accused Anna of stealing a total of roughly $275,000. But Anna and her lawyer, Tom Spodek, didn't try to argue that she hadn't lied and cheated her way to the top. If anything, they leaned into it, arguing that Anna had had no choice but to fake it till she made it if she wanted to make her dreams come true. Her lawyer said that Anna had been easily seduced by the glamour and glitz of the Big Apple and even compared her to Frank Sinatra. Anna had been at Rikers for about a year and a half by the time her trial began, and she wasn't allowed any makeup or hair products, but she still managed to turn heads and stir up the already frantic media by hiring a celebrity stylist for her court appearances, Anastasia Walker, who dressed her in some pretty iconic designer outfits. Like there were literally people dressing as Anna for Halloween later that year. There was also one day in court where proceedings were delayed for 2 hours because Anna straight out refused to enter the courtroom because her outfit for the day hadn't been pressed and she didn't want to wear her prison-issued jumpsuit. As you might expect, this didn't go down too well at all. The Judge Diane Kiesel, who oversaw the trial, was entirely unimpressed and ordered Anna to appear, saying, "I'm sorry if her clothing is not up to her standards, but she's got to be here." And the prosecutors accused Anna of being more concerned with her attire rather than the emotions of those she had hurt. One of the witnesses at the trial was a man named Dennis Onabajo, and he was a former staff member of Fortress, and it was creepy. So Dennis had met Anna because he was in charge of processing her multi-million-dollar loan application, but it was revealed at trial that after Anna had withdrawn this application and was no longer doing business with Fortress, Dennis had met with her for dinner 3 times at 11 Howard and a couple of other times at other restaurants and bars in the Manhattan area. And he claimed that he had no romantic interest in Anna at all, that he just wanted a business type relationship with her. But there were these texts that he had sent her that were a little bit on the risque side for a business relationship. On the 11th of March 2017, Dennis texted Anna saying, "I'm forcing myself not to kiss you because you are insanely beautiful." Even worse, another text he sent after a meeting at 11 Howard read, "Let me come upstairs and say a proper goodbye." Yes, hello. I know. Yeah, clearly Dennis just wanted a handshake because he wanted a business relationship, didn't he? Yeah. Don't cancel Dennis, guys. I know, it's pretty funny, isn't it? In total, Dennis sent Anna over 150 texts, most of them flirtatious in nature. Rachel also appeared and testified against Anna and told the court all about the Morocco trip and everything she had been through since. And What became abundantly clear along the course of the trial was that Anna felt no guilt or remorse at all. The prosecution even accused her of reveling in the plight of her victims. Anna seemed more concerned with who was going to play her in her Netflix series rather than anyone she had hurt. Like, she was reportedly pestering producers at Netflix, saying that she would prefer to be played by Jennifer Lawrence, but she also didn't hate the idea of being played by Margot Robbie. In the end, on the 25th of April 2019, the jury found Anna guilty of 8 charges, including grand larceny in the second degree, attempted grand larceny, and theft of services. At her sentencing, Judge Kiesel echoed the notions put forward by Anna's lawyer and said that she had been blinded by the glitter and glamour of New York City and had resorted to fraud to fund a lifestyle that she never would have been able to afford otherwise. Anna was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison, including time served, and was also ordered to pay a $24,000 fine, as well as nearly $200,000 in restitutions to her victims. She did manage to escape the most serious charge against her for the fraudulent $1 million loan application to City National Bank, which her lawyer had argued she wasn't guilty of because she had never even gotten close to actually obtaining the loan. Anna was also found not guilty on one charge of larceny in the second degree for the $62,000 she had allegedly stolen from Rachel Williams, as the jury weren't convinced that Anna had intended to steal the money because, she still could have been planning on paying it back, you guys. We don't know. Fortunately for Anna, though, although she obviously went through a whole lot of stress and trauma, it seems like she came through the whole ordeal okay. She released a best-selling book in July 2019 about her experiences with Anna called My Friend Anna, with the tagline, "The True Story of the Fake Heiress Who Conned Me and Half of New York City." And the book came with lucrative deals totaling up to a potential $600,000 with both Simon & Schuster and HBO, who reportedly plan on releasing their own series regarding Anna's exploits from Rachel's point of view. Also, after an investigation into the Morocco trip, American Express covered most of the $62,000 that Anna owed Rachel. Back to Anna, her legal battles were far from over. Just 1 month after the trial, she was sued by the New York Attorney General's office and her accounts were frozen using a Son of Sam law, which prohibits criminals from profiting from the publicity of their crimes. This is an extremely controversial law that was first passed and targeted against its namesake, serial killer David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, in 1977 to prevent him from profiting from any potential contracts he might sign for movie or book deals about his crimes. In Anna's case, the New York state was of course concerned with her contract with Netflix, for which the initial payment had been $30,000, but the payments were forecast to rise to around the $320,000 mark over time, and they weren't having it. Once the suit went through, the State Office of Victim Services, or the OVS, froze an advance payment of $140,000 from Netflix to Anna, allowing City National Bank to swoop in and claim $100,000 of it, and Citibank to claim the remaining $40,000. After this, Netflix agreed to send future payments to an account managed by Anna's lawyer and monitored by the OVS. However, even during the trial before she was convicted, Anna's lawyer pointed out that she had already been paying back the money that she had scammed from her victims, even though she planned to file an appeal if she was found guilty. And if her appeal was successful, it might have meant that she wouldn't have had to pay anything at all and could hold on to all of her Netflix money. But Anna's lawyer argued that Anna's debts should be settled in civil court, not in criminal court. And they've got this really strange logic that I personally can't quite wrap my mind around, where because Anna didn't storm in a ski mask with guns blazing and hold up the joint, she doesn't believe that she stole the money. However, she does believe that she owes the money back. So somehow she can mentally justify cheating and lying her way into the $275,000 odd dollars she was accused of swindling, but she can't justify keeping the money. Like, it just doesn't add up to me personally, but then I'm not a lawyer and I've never been a fake heiress. So Anyway, despite being sentenced to a minimum 4 years, Anna was released early for good behaviour on the 11th of February 2021, and her accounts had been unfrozen 1 month earlier as she had been diligently paying back her victims during her 3.5 years behind bars. But obviously, she still had some money to play with because upon her release, she checked into the 5-star Nomad Hotel, and I bet they triple-checked that they had a credit card on file for her booking. Anna pretty much immediately took to Instagram to show off that she was still maintaining her pre-prison glamorous lifestyle. She also gave a ton of interviews where she stated multiple times that she wasn't sorry and that she never told anyone lies about who she was or how much money she had. They had just made assumptions. But then on the other hand, while making all these claims that she was innocent, she told the BBC that crime did pay in a way. So I don't know. Anna also hired a full-time videographer to follow her around and document her life for what I imagine would have been some kind of promo or documentary she had in the works, but her brief taste of freedom came to a crashing halt after just a month and a half when in March, she was detained by ICE for overstaying her visa. And she was expected to be deported back to Germany shortly after that, but nothing happened, and to this day, Anna is still in custody facing deportation. And it's actually pretty hard to try and find out what the delay is about, but Anna has said in the past that she preferred prison over Germany. And according to a quote I came across from an immigration lawyer familiar with the case, seeing as Anna had overstayed her visa and had a criminal conviction, she should have been deported immediately. And the only reason for this not to have happened is if she's applied for relief and formally challenged the deportation. In an interesting but irrelevant little bit of side tea, Anna's new attorney, Audrey Thomas, has her own checkered past, including her own grand larceny indictment for allegedly stealing $200,000 from a client. But the Netflix special is still going ahead. Like we said in part 1, it's premiering in February and it's produced by none other than Shonda Rhimes, who produced Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and Bridgerton. And it's not going to be Jennifer Lawrence or Margot Robbie playing Anna. Instead, it will be Julia Garner, best known for her role in the Netflix series The Ozarks, which I think was just the best casting choice ever, and the rest of the cast looks amazing as well. And if you can't tell, I'm super excited to watch it. But yeah, Anna these days, despite still being in prison and the uncertainty regarding her future, I think it's safe to say she's officially one of the cool kids she had aspired to be from the beginning, maybe even cooler. Like, she's famous, or at least infamous. There's people wearing shirts saying Fake Heiress, applauding her for scamming the rich, calling her queen. Her name has been trending on social media multiple times. She's jumped from 40K followers on Instagram to 145K. And if you ever want to be entertained, the comments on her posts are a ride. When it comes to her plans for the future, Anna has said that once she is released, she would like to move to London and maybe start her own investment company. She also plans to use her experience behind bars to fight for prison reform. And if you're left wondering whether Anna has any regrets, when asked in an interview, she said that she probably would do it all over again. And that kind of brings us to the end of Anna's story, or at least where it stands today, because I really don't think we've seen the last of Anna. And it's hard when watching interviews to not feel personally gaslit by her. Like, she's clearly very manipulative, but she's also obviously a very intelligent woman. And I feel like given the right resources, legitimately, of course, she could have some very bright things in her future. And, you know, she's done her time. She's quite literally paid her dues. So, like, I guess we can move on. But as usual, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this crazy roller coaster of a case. This hangout does not have to end here. Let's have an after party in the comments section below and talk about our feelings. I really hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, remember to let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. Also, if you're still watching and you're not already subscribed, then it would mean the world to me if you did that. And then we can be best friends forever and ever and make this a regular thing. But no pressure. Before you go, I'm pretty sure Lily wants to say bye. Oh, hi. You want to say bye to everyone? They're over there. They're over there. Can you see? It's super confusing, isn't it? But they're just there. And they came to see you, not me. Yeah, it's true. Do you want to speak? Really? Really? Thank you so much for spending this time with me and Lily today. We appreciate it so much. We hope you have a fabulous week, and we will be counting down the hours until we see you in the next one. Bye.